of exchange rates. There's a floating exchange rates or flexible exchange rates where the currency's value is determined by market forces such as supply and demand. And there's also fixed exchange rates, and also we call it pegged exchange rates, when the currency's value is set at a fixed value of another currency. So let's discuss the floating exchange rate first, and then we'll briefly discuss the fixed rate. So flexible exchange rates or floating exchange rates determined by supply and demand. So we discussed supply and demand briefly in the beginning of the semester. So here we're talking about exchange rates. That's the price for our currency. What does supply and demand represent? Supply and demand here will represent the supply of currency and demand of currency. To make things a little bit simpler than they could be, we will talk about exchange rates for dollars in terms of other currencies. So we're going to be trading dollars in our exchange markets. And we're going to measure the price of dollars in other currencies. If $1 can buy more of other currency, we'll say that dollar appreciates. So price of dollar goes up. Now dollars is costing you euro 50 instead of euro 30. So dollar appreciated. If $1 can buy less of other currency, we say dollar depreciated. So for example, yesterday $1 was worth 0.8 euros, and today $1 is worth 0.77 euros. So dollar buys less of euros, so we say the value of dollar depreciated. What happened to the value of euro? It's always the opposite of what happened to the other currency. So we can say that euro appreciated. So what's going to determine the exchange rate? Let's look at our regular supply and demand picture, supply and demand graph, and discuss it a little bit. So as before, we have demand curve as downward sloping line. As the price increases, the quantity is going to drop. That's why it's downward sloping. And supply is going to be the upward sloping line. Wherever demand and supply, and this is demand and supply not for goods and services, this is demand and supply of US dollars. Wherever they intersect, we have the exchange rate. So once supply is equal to demand, that's how we determine our exchange rate, how much $1 is worth in the other currency, and we determine the equilibrium quantity of dollars traded in the market. So number of dollar sellers is matching number of dollar buyers. So on our horizontal line, we show the quantity of dollars. On our vertical line, we show our exchange rate. That's the price of a dollar, exchange rate. In this particular graph, we're going to be mostly interested in this exchange rate. If equilibrium exchange rate is going to go up, we're going to say dollar appreciated. And if it's going to go down, then we're going to say that dollar depreciated. So what's going to make currency appreciate? What can happen in this market to demand and supply for this exchange rate to go up? Well, let's look at this picture. We either can increase demand curve, move it to the right, or we can decrease the supply curve. Give me a second. Come on, supply curve. Or we can decrease the supply curve. And once again, exchange rate is going to go up. So higher demand or lower supply. Remember, we're lowering supply by moving supply curve to the left. Don't move it up and down. Move it either right for increase or left for the decrease. So how is this going to be possible? So higher demand is going to happen when people want more dollars. Lower supply means that we are not really wanting to keep our dollars, but we'll talk about that in a second. It will make more sense. So what's going to make the currency depreciate? So movement in supply and demand that will move this exchange rate, the equilibrium price, down. So it's either increase in the supply or decrease in the demand. So if more people want other currencies, we need to get rid of the dollars to get other currencies, and that's how exchange rate is going to go down for United States dollars. So let's discuss a little bit more what demand and supply of dollars represent. So demand for dollar is represented by foreigners. So every time we think about demand for dollars, we think about foreigners. Why is that the case? Well, who has dollars? We do. United States resident. We get paid in dollars. So we already have dollars. We demand them, but we can get them through work, not through the exchange rate. Who demands dollars in the exchange rate market? Foreigners. Imagine somebody in Italy wanting to visit United States. They need to have dollars. So they will demand those dollars, and in exchange, they will pay with euros. So if foreigners require dollars to purchase our goods or financial assets or come visit us in the United States, we say that demand for US dollars is going to increase. Who represents the supply of dollars? We do. Residents of the United States. We get paid in dollars so we can take them to the exchange market and exchange them for the other currencies. So we have dollars for sale if we require the foreign currency. So if we want to get other currency to either travel or buy their goods and services or buy their financial assets, then supply of US dollars increases. So keep this in mind. Demand, foreigners. Supply, us, US residents. So what can determine exchange rates? Several things. We're going to talk about 5 of them. 3 that relates to the purchase of goods and services, and 2 that relate to the purchase of financial assets. A lot of times when we think about goods and services, it also kind of may help us to see, not just like to think about the good, but maybe to think about travel, but we'll talk about that in a second. So change in taste. Change in taste can change exchange rate. Let's say United States goods become more popular. Disneyland in Florida, or Disney World, or Disneyland, I believe, in Florida, becomes more popular. So now foreigners want to come and visit United States. How can they do that? Well, they can't really pay with euros at the Disney World. They need to have dollars. So they demand more dollars. As a result, we say demand for dollars increases. Let's say foreign goods become more popular. All of a sudden, there is extremely delicious wine in France, and that's the only place you can get it from. So foreign goods more popular. Well, we can't really pay with US dollars for French wine purchased in France. So we need to have euros. How do we get euros? We take our dollars, bring them to the exchange market, so we're increasing supply of dollars, and we get the euros in exchange. Change in relative income can also change exchange rates. Let's say we are in the recession. What does it mean? It means our residents have lower incomes. It means our residents have really tight budget. So we're not going to be purchasing as many goods and services. As all of us probably know, we don't just purchase goods and services from United States. We also purchase a lot of foreign goods and services. So we don't have those dollars to spend anymore. So we don't bring them to the foreign exchange market anymore. We keep them for the basic needs that we're probably going to buy at home. So supply of dollars is going to decrease. Let's say that Europe has a recession. The opposite is going to be true. Lower incomes in Europe means that the residents don't have as much money to spend. It means they're going to cut on spending not on just their items, but also they're not going to come visit us in the United States, which means demand decreases for our goods and services. Demand decreases for US dollars. The opposite, of course, is going to be true if we have the economic boom. If United States experiences economic boom, it means we have higher incomes, we have a lot of dollars to spend, which means we're not just going to be buying goods and services from United States, but I'm also going to go and buy TV from Japan. So what's going to happen, I'm going to take my dollars and bring more of them to the exchange market, which means supply of dollars will increase. If other countries have an economic boom, they will spend their money on our goods and services. To do that, they increase demand for our dollars, so demand will increase. Changes in inflation may also change demand and supply. Let's say we have high inflation in the United States, which means that our goods become relatively to the other countries more expensive. And European or the world goods become relatively less expensive. So which one are we going to buy? Even though we're patriotic, we're probably going to opt in for the less expensive goods. So what do we need? We need foreign currencies. So we're going to increase supply of dollars. We bring our dollars to the exchange markets because we want the foreign currency, and supply increases. At the same time, since our goods are relatively more expensive to the rest of the world, they don't want to buy them anymore. Our goods are too expensive. It's too expensive to go to the Disney World in Florida. So foreigners would stay at home. As a result, they're not demanding as many dollars, so demand is going to decrease. If high inflation is happening in Europe, the opposite is going to be true. Their goods becoming relatively more expensive, our goods relatively cheaper. We don't want euros, so we decrease supply of dollars, we keeping them to ourselves. Yet foreigners want more dollars, so they're increasing demand for our currency. Two other things that will affect the financial markets: changes in interest rate and expected returns. If we increase interest rates in the United States, meaning that we pay more for a loan, more foreigners would want to save in the United States. They would like to keep their money in United States banks. Well, they have to exchange euros for dollars. Even though sometimes banks will accept the foreign currencies, still we kind of have to go through the exchange rates. If I have Ukrainian hryvnias, I can't just walk into the US bank and put my hryvnias in that bank. First, I have to exchange them. So when we demand more US dollars, demand for dollars increases. Increased interest rates in the rest of the world, in other countries, in Europe, for example, more Americans want to save there. So as a result, we're trying to get rid of dollars by exchanging them for the other currencies. So we are increasing the supply of dollars. Change in expected returns in foreign investment, very similar. Increased returns in the United States, our stocks pay out more foreigners want to save in the United States, demand increases. Increased returns in Europe, more Americans want to save there, so supply increases. Of course, opposite will be true as well. So if the opposite happening, let's say political instability, United States return go down, foreigners will not want to save in the United States. As a result, demand will drop. And if, let's say, political instability in Europe, supply will decrease.